So that's how when I say sustainable, I'm using something, a resource that would otherwise go to waste. I'm keeping it from the landfill and making sure that it is given more of a useful life. So that way, A, you're saving a lot of space because now this big dress that no longer needs to sit in a closet will now you free up closet space. You're keeping it from the landfill because the dress isn't going to a landfill. And you're saving all the resources that would have gone into making a new dress. And so without ado, you guys can make the dresses. Here we have the monstrosity of the 1980s dress. Feast your eyes. You've got the bling, you've got the shoulder pads, you've got a lot of usable fabric.
Yes.
Look at that. I mean, and not even just this, the fact that it's gathered, and a lot of these dresses had gathered skirts. This is even as bad as some of them, where it's just, so thickly gathered that, I mean, that just goes on forever. Because this was the 80s, and it was, excess was what you did. So, I mean, I've seen dresses that had the mutton chop sleeves of that, big sleeves they had with the big hair and the bigger butt bow. Anyway, it just got bigger and bigger and more voluminous. Is that the word? Yeah. Well, these dresses are now sitting in closets and nobody wants them.
Except for Lori.
Lori wants them. Lori loves them. I mean, really.
Very nice to your dress.
Oh, yes. Well, but that actually brings up a good point. A lot of these dresses are not in the best of shape because, maybe there was coffee or wine spilled on them at the reception and they never got the stain out. Maybe, like my cousin, someone stepped on her dress and in the reception stepped on, because she had one of these long trains, and it hadn't been bustled up, and it ripped like right there, and we got it with safety pins and stuff. This is before I was actually dressmaking because I'm like, my senior year. But she had to deal with that. So I mean, so you have these dresses, some of them are not the best of shape, and they're sitting around, and they eventually find their way to eBay or yard sales or something. I'm like, well, this is a resource. This is a great resource. What if we could take these dresses and make them into something that somebody would actually want to wear? Something that could be enjoyed again, and so you're extending the useful life of the fabric. I see that as actually much more respectful to silkworms, because so more silkworms don't have to die to make a brand new dress, because you've got, this isn't, by the way, this isn't actually silk. The person who sold it to me said it was silk, and when I got it, I was like, oh God, no, it's not. But I didn't have the heart to tell her. You're not going to tell somebody, oh, by the way, that wasn't a silk dress you were married in. I didn't. Would you? I really think she was serious. I don't think she was lying to me. I think they told her it was silk and she didn't know any different. I didn't know.
I had several dresses from the 1940s in the show that when the family gave it to me, so they said, oh, they're silk dresses. They were asking me, but they look shiny and they're nice. And so everyone just assumes, as we were talking about last week, that wedding dresses are made out of silk, and they're not always. Actually, mostly they're not.
Yeah. So I do try to find the ones that are actually silk because I just love working with it. Silk is my favorite things in the world. So I made, now excuse the skirt, it had been in a bag in a closet, and the skirt didn't survive.
And we mushed it around earlier today.
And
it was all steamed out pretty.
It was all mushy. Anyway, so now this dress originally looked a lot like this one. It had bigger, poofier sleeves, but you get the idea. So obviously, you can see how I took bodice, I took it completely apart, and I cut it into new pieces. I didn't just update the dress, I just took it and reworked it completely. The skirt, I took that off and I added the all-important ruching, which I'll talk about in a minute. Where is the bow? We have, of course, the butt bow, which I really wasn't sure where to put it, and I thought, if there was a bunch of kids, I would say, okay, where do you think the bow should go? But I actually got a better idea, because another thing that I think dresses would do well to have are pockets. Even just a little bitty pocket. What a great idea. And I thought, well, I could put a pocket in here somewhere, and then I made the dress and realized, no, it's just, I could have, but then I figured, no, it would just spoil the line of the dress. But I still had this bow, and so I did something that I've never seen done before, and I can't believe no one's thought of it. I made this into a pocket. I sewed the bottom, and so now, whoops, if you would decide, say you wanted to, I don't know, wherever you want to put it, well, you can keep things like contact lenses and lipstick. How about that?
I was so excited.
I was showing my husband. I was like, oh my God, what do you think? Look what I did. And he's he's just looking at me like I'm nuts. I'm like, don't you understand? This is
See, men don't understand the pockets thing at all.
no, because they
don't.
have pockets.
They
They're used to
close,
pockets.
have
It's a-
You came out with a great idea because I wish my dress had pockets when I mean, I bought a brand, I mean, I didn't buy like a brand new dress because I didn't want to spend a lot of money on my wedding. I think I spent $150 on my dress that I found in downtown Lowell. And every time I put it on, my husband's like, "That's great." Yeah, I said, "Yeah, but where's the pockets?" And he's like, "Oh, you don't need pockets. You have a tiny little purse to go with it." I'm like, "Yeah, whatever,
You can't carry
whatever."
that down the aisle with your tissue in case you cry when you get
How insulting is this? Anyway, another thing that I have started to do, I do this with all my designs, and I consider this much more sustainable too, is I always have a lacing back as opposed to a zipper, although, you could use a zipper, but, you want to be saving resources, including money, and alterations cost a lot. And so say you've gotten your dress and it's all great and it fits you perfectly, and then something happens. You lose weight, you gain muscle because you're working out. That actually happened to someone I worked for. And suddenly it doesn't fit so well anymore. Then you have to pay for more alterations. This is crazy. So this makes them a lot more comfortable and, also easier to fit you. It's going to fit you on your wedding day unless you've really changed in one way or another. And so I prefer using this because this makes the dress, you could also wear it again. I mean, not necessarily this one, but if you wanted a dress that was like not white and like party length, which I've done. People have, bought wedding dresses, wore them for their wedding and then kept it for another occasion, which again, makes it more sustainable because you're using it again, you're extending its useful life, you're not just wearing it once and passing it along.
Well, Victorian period, you would buy, that would be your
That, I was going to get into that.
dress,
Yeah, that's what I was ending with the last time, is that this kind of stuff has been going on all along. When fabric was very expensive and hard to get, you would take an old dress and make a new one out of it, or you would somehow, you could turn pieces around. I was saying that in Charles Dickens, they talk about Bob Cratchit's wife was in a twice-turned gown. And what that means is that the gown was taken apart, turned inside out, used the inside of the fabric because maybe it wasn't as faded or stained, and then she did it again. That shows how poor they were, that she had to actually turn it more than once because it kept looking so bad that they just kept using the inside because the inside kept looking better. That makes sense. But it was basically to show how poor they were. But they did that all the time. Dressmakers would update your dress from last year's, well, this year, longer sleeves are in, and so you take your dress to the dressmaker and they rework it because you didn't just go to the Walmart and buy something. I mean, this is the kind of thing that it was a precious resource, and so they made the most of it.
And there's just words I want to add. In one of the, we have a sewing diary in the museum collection, and I've been able, we know whose it was, and so I've done research on the family, and they were from a fairly well-to-do family. The father was a lawyer in Worcester. But the sewing diary mentions all this updating of stuff, and I thought, well, they had money because they had brought dressmakers in, but it was interesting how much they still did their own updating and sewing. She didn't just go out and buy a new wardrobe every year, even though she could. So it was just a different mentality for being frugal, even if you had the means to buy new clothes. So that's really I hadn't, just the way we talked about it today, it made me realize that.
Well, I mean, and plus, you've got all this gorgeous fabric. Why would you want to go find something when you could use, besides the fabric, you've got things like, well, there's my lining. You've got crinolines. You've got the structure underneath. You've got zippers. You've got snaps. You've got buttons. You've got shoulder pads. Every dress, especially the 80s ones, are just full of components that you can reuse into something else. And what a great way to do that. So again, it's like this one. This is attached. This is part of the dress. I know, how immodest. But this is part of the dress. Now, obviously, this is, what else are you going to use it for except what it's meant for? So if you can make a new dress and put this in the new dress, then you've saved it from the closet, you've saved it from the landfill, and you've saved somebody having to make another one. I mean, where's the bad? Now, can you take a dress like this that's been remade and then make another one? Sure! As long as the fabric holds out, you can keep doing that. And there are certain ways, notice the segue, there are certain ways that I've come up with, and I'm sure other people have too, of design elements of how to put the fabric to the best use by using a certain design. Now that dress, you can see, has a lot of ruching. That's what we call it, ruche. you know, and you see that a lot these days, and it's very forgiving. It makes everybody look good. To me, I like it a lot because you can basically adjust it however you want. It also can hide a multitude of sins. Now, this is actually a dressmaker's mark. It's a dressmaker's pen. I mean, it'll come out with water. But when I get dresses from eBay or from Salvation Army, the one on exhibit was from the Saugus Salvation Army, they often have rips and stains and, you know, dust and all sorts of things that may or may not come out. So, you know, that's probably why they're given away in the first place. You know, you don't always get pristine dresses. You know, a lot of times they just don't know what to do with them. So if you can come up with ways to use the fabric to hide these little sins, then you can make the most of the fabric even more so